Is 2023 the year of the Steam Deck Slim? How's it going, everyone, and welcome to Deck Ready. Today I have 6 things I would like to see from the Steam Deck in 2023, and we're just going to start off super quick here because there's a lot to get into. The first thing I want to see is SteamOS 3.0 officially released. If you look at where it's at now versus where it was when the Steam Deck released almost a year ago, it is like completely night and day. They've ironed out a ton of bugs, they've added in a ton of new features, they've made it basically the full-fledged handheld gaming operating system it was always meant to be. And also the desktop mode has seen a ton of improvements as well that make it so I have no issues when I transfer between my laptop and my Steam Deck docked at my desktop setup here that's right underneath the camera. I understand why it's taking so long to get it ready to be shipped so it can be put on pretty much any PC you want, because just from a graphics card and component perspective alone, you're going from supporting one device, which is the Steam Deck, which has one configuration and one chip, to basically infinite configurations out there. Like, you can use it with any PC theoretically, and that's awesome. But again, I understand why it's taking so long to get it ready to work in that fashion. And right now there are a couple of alternatives. You have Hollow ISO, but last time I checked that didn't work so well or at all with NVIDIA graphics cards, and it's not something I really feel like installing on my main PC. And then the other like midway step that we have right now is updating your Steam client to beta, making a shortcut on your desktop and adding new big picture mode with a minus sign before it in the properties. And then when you go into big picture mode in that Steam beta client, it will be basically the Steam Deck's operating system just on your screen. Now, it is just interface, like it's big picture mode, but it works incredibly well. I have tested it extensively with Death Stranding Director's Cut. Over the Christmas break, I was listening to Hideo Kojima's Brain Structure. It made me want to play Death Stranding again, so I downloaded it on my Steam Deck. I downloaded it on my main gaming PC, and it really is a completely seamless experience bouncing back and forth between the two. And it looks and plays great on the Steam Deck at 30 FPS with default settings, and it looks and plays obviously even better on my TV. And it's such a great experience having my DualSense connected to Steam using Steam input, and I'm playing Death Stranding on my TV just like it was on my PS5, but then I can take the game on the go whenever I want on my Steam Deck. That is the experience I want, plus all the added benefits that SteamOS brings along with it. So that's why, while yes, the stopgap of using the new beta of Steam is great, I would like to have a partition on my laptop where I keep SteamOS, because as we've seen, Valve has done a great job with the shader pre-caching system that eliminates a lot of stuttering in games. The biggest example was right when the Steam Deck came out. It was with Elden Ring. The game basically had a lot of stuttering issues on PC. It didn't run so great on PS5. It didn't run so great on Xbox Series X. So basically the two best ways to run that game, at launch at least, was either playing it on the Steam Deck at around medium settings at 30 FPS, or running the PS4 version on your PS5 in back compat mode, because that was like a very smooth way to play it at a higher frame rate. And we've seen this shader caching come to other games. Of course, people don't like how big the files are, but what that does is eliminate stuttering in a lot of games that have it. And as we saw in Digital Foundry's new video, 2022 was a notoriously bad year for stuttering in games. So yes, when this comes out, and I'm hoping it'll be this year, I will be installing a partition of SteamOS 3.0 on my laptop. So if a game does come out and I have stuttering issues with it on Windows and it's supported on SteamOS, I can just bounce over there, download it on Steam, and be good to go. And in my experience using both my PC and my Steam Deck, playing one game at the same time and bouncing back and forth, a AAA game that is, one thing I've really gravitated towards more is the Steam Deck, mainly because I love using my Sony XM5 headphones with games, and the headphone jack on the DualSense works great if you're using it with a PS5, but it's almost impossible to get it working on a PC. And if you want to use it wirelessly over Bluetooth, it literally is impossible. So I could just connect my headphones to my PC with Bluetooth, but then there's latency in the game, whereas I can just connect it with the headphone cord to my Steam Deck and it sounds incredible there. And the game, like I said, runs as well as it did on PS4 at 800p 30 FPS at default settings. And honestly, I think the default settings might look a little bit better because it's the PS5 Director's Cut versus the original release. As for when this is going to happen, honestly, at this point, who knows? I'm pretty optimistic that it could be sooner rather than later though, because the last update we got was on October 27th when Steam Deck HQ, my buddies over there, put up an article about a user in their Discord named Gekt who was looking through Valve's repos and was able to find a media creation tool for SteamOS. Now, you don't have the image to put in the media creation tool, so it doesn't really work, but you could install it. Like, you could download it and install it on your computer, and it looks like it was a finished program. So that leads a lot of people to believe that there's people testing SteamOS on their actual PCs out there. So I'm crossing crossing my fingers and just hoping that this isn't Valve time, where it's like soon could mean by the end of this year, and I'm hoping that soon means in the next couple months. The next thing I really want to see this year with the Steam Deck is Windows dual boot support officially from Valve. Look, I get it, it's a contentious topic. The Steam Deck is built to not need Windows. I just gushed about how great SteamOS 3.0 is, but at this point, 1 year in, thanks to some developers who refuse to support the Steam Deck, it's looking more and more like Steam Deck is a necessity for some gamers, myself included. Look, like 99% of the games I play on SteamOS are completely fine, whether it's Spider-Man Remastered, Days Gone, Miles Morales, now we've got Death Stranding Director's Cut, I'm playing an indie game called Zero Sievert, I'm looking at tons and tons of different stuff. Hell, like even Battle.net works totally fine with games like Diablo 3, which has a great controller configuration setup in Steam that I've been using, but with games that I play the most, like Destiny 2, or games that are online like Dead by Daylight or Fortnite, you just straight up can't play those games on SteamOS. And Valve kind of made it seem like they were making headway talking to these different developers for a little bit there, but now it looks like they're just not going to support the device. And that really sucks, because when you play Destiny 2 on the Windows side of Steam Deck, it works totally fine. And as we just saw in Digital Foundry's newest video, even though they upgraded Fortnite to Unreal Engine 5, it works extremely well on the Steam Deck, and in most cases can match the performance of the Xbox Series S. And Fortnite is definitely a game I would love playing on the Steam Deck, because for a while there, it was a game I really loved playing on my Nintendo Switch. Dead by Daylight is a game I have a love-hate relationship with. Obviously, I'm a huge horror nerd, as you can see behind me. There's tons of Halloween stuff in this room. I love how they have Michael Myers, Freddy, Leatherface, all these original characters, all these cool video game characters. It's just a hard game to get into, but I did play a lot of it, again, on the Nintendo Switch, and I would love to play it on the Steam Deck. But just like with Destiny and Fortnite, there really is virtually no way to do it on SteamOS outside of streaming the games, which me personally, I'm just not going to do. So right now you can dual boot Windows, but it's kind of a convoluted process. My friend Royce from work did it, and it took him basically a whole afternoon after work. And I don't want to get into the trap where I set aside a partition of my Steam Deck's 1TB SSD for Windows, and then when the official version comes out, I screw myself in some way and ended up having to wipe the whole Steam Deck's drive and start over, re-download all my games. It's just a headache I don't want to have to deal with, knowing that they are working on official dual boot support. I'd rather just wait for it, you know? The other options available are installing Windows 11 on a micro SD card as Windows to Go. That works for sure, but there have been issues with it that I've experienced, like updating the APU driver. Depending on the version of the driver, it's a total crapshoot on whether or not you're actually able to update it. Restarting when you're installing Windows is also always scary, because you basically have to shut the Steam Deck down and then restart it while you're holding the minus button and then reselect the micro SD card. It also can damage your SD card over time because of how many read writes happen inside of Windows. It's just not the ideal experience, mainly because also it's extremely slow versus installing it on your Steam Deck's actual SSD. And then finally, the other option is just wiping the Steam Deck and installing Windows on it, which is like the worst idea ever, because again, SteamOS is awesome and there are plenty of other Windows handhelds out there you could look at if that's what you're looking at doing. So when you take all of that and put it together, the real fix to this issue that I'd love to see this year is Valve's dual boot support officially releasing for Steam Deck. And again, unfortunately, like with SteamOS 3.0, we really have no idea when this is coming. We just know it is coming. But the silver lining here, again, is that Valve has done a great job over the past year improving SteamOS and adding new features to it. So this is really one of the last big features people are really asking for. So that's why I feel like it's a fair assumption to assume that it is going to come in 2023. I got my fingers crossed that it happens in the first half of the year. Like either one of those, SteamOS 3.0 officially releasing or Windows dual boot officially supported on the Steam Deck. If either of those happen before June, I am a happy Jim. That's me right there. Just a happy dude playing my Steam Deck using Windows, or a happy dude playing SteamOS 3.0 on my gaming PC. The third thing I want to see Valve do with the Steam Deck this year is give setting sharing another look. My absolute favorite Steam Deck meme, which I know is a lot of other people's, is the metagame of downloading a game to your Steam Deck, booting it up for the first time, figuring out all the settings that make it run absolutely flawlessly, and then quitting the game, maybe even deleting it and moving on to the next game you're going to get running on the handheld. It's awesome because it is a handheld PC, and getting all these big AAA games running perfectly is a fun metagame. But at the end of the day, I have gotten to the point where I want to start playing a lot of games on my Steam Deck, and tinkering with settings for hours and hours on end is getting frustrating. Thankfully, there are third-party websites like Steam Deck HQ that have full profiles on their page page that not only show you the settings in game you should use, but also the resolutions. They show you what megahertz you should clock your GPU at. They tell you what TDP to use. They tell you what frame rate to lock the system at. Like, everything you need to know is perfectly and easily laid out right there. It's awesome. Then there are YouTubers like CryoBite33 who figured out how to increase the VRAM on the Steam Deck and also figured out a way to mess with the swap file and trim functions to make the Steam Deck run even better. I know I just butchered that, but you guys get what I'm saying. And then there's the Deckverse. So there are a ton of different YouTubers out there who are finding the best settings in games. The obvious big caveat there across the board is that you need to wait for all these people to either make videos or write articles with all these different settings, and it's a hard thing to expect them to keep up with. Like Death Stranding Director's Cut, for example. There's no listing on Steam Deck HQ for that game. I had to figure it out on my own, and that's where I think Valve can really step in and make this work out really well. So it's a little tricky because they did do an interview with The Verge at the end of the year in 2022 where they said, look, we're not gonna make it so you can share your settings from every game like as a file from deck to deck, because that would be a massive undertaking and it would be extremely complicated. Like, you would need every developer to be on board, and that's just not a realistic scenario. But I don't think they need to take it that far. One thing I thought of is that they could add it to the discussion boards, like have a pinned thread where people can share the settings they're using for pretty much every game out there. That would be awesome to have a default thread made like that. Or they could take it one step further and add an entire tab where you can do a little drop down, say what TDP, what megahertz you're clocking your GPU at, what like FPS settings you're using, what settings you're using in the game. You could just say, hey, this is how it's working for me. People could read that resource on their actual Steam Deck instead of bouncing between their phone and like trying to figure out all these settings, like skipping through YouTube videos and all of that. Or they could even make a new version of the Steam Curator system where instead of recommending games, you're recommending settings. And they could say, hey, Steam Deck HQ, these guys are a super valuable resource. They share some great settings. They got a lot of upvotes from the community. We're giving them a little verified badge, and then they could have all of their different settings they come up with that they put on their website already listed right there in Steam. And they could do the same thing with CryoBite or the Deckverse, anyone who really shares settings, because it's a great system where if you share great settings, you're gonna get boosted to the top, just like we have with controller profiles right now. If I was Valve, I wouldn't touch the verified, playable, and unsupported system that they already have now, because as it's implemented, I think it works just about as well as it could. It always feels great when I see that verified check mark like I saw with Death Stranding Director's Cut, and I think they've done a good job taking it away when an update breaks a game, like with Jedi Fallen Order, which weirdly enough was a game they advertised the Steam Deck with back when it was announced, but then EA had to go and screw it up with the new EA launcher, and you had to go through all these weird processes to get it working again, so they lost the verified status. Death Stranding Director's Cut, a Steam Deck update broke that game. I'm not sure if in between it lost its verified status, but it was able to gain it back. I think that works totally fine. I just think they need to add in a system to share settings in games. The thing I want to see from the Steam Deck in 2023 is a Steam Deck Slim. Now, we know that if Valve releases one of these things from that Verge article, it's just going to be a hardware, like cosmetic improvement, not necessarily any improvements on the actual chip inside the device, which is great because I think the Steam Deck's chip is awesome, and making another SKU that runs games differently would just make a whole headache for Valve that I don't think anyone on either side of the fence wants to deal with. So keeping that in mind, there are still some things that I think they could improve with this device that would literally make it as perfect as it could be at this point in time. The first one being a bigger battery. I didn't really feel this pain when the Steam Deck launched. Like, Elden Ring would play for around an hour and 45 minutes, and that was a pretty solid experience. I also have a pretty big power bank, which again is linked down in the description, that keeps the thing alive for 2 extra charges on top of its main battery charge. But where I really felt it was when I went home to Michigan for Christmas, because I forgot my power bank, and I only made it about an hour and 10 minutes into the flight with full battery playing Death Stranding Director's Cut with some great settings I found that limited the TDP and the megahertz of the graphics card. It lasted an hour and 10 minutes, which to me is not long enough. So yes, with this little real estate of the Steam Deck, I think they need to figure out how to get more battery life out of it, either on the software side or include a bigger battery in the device. One of those two, I don't care what they do, maybe both would be great. Something they also really need to figure out is the screen bleed situation. Just Google Steam Deck screen bleed Reddit and you will see tons of posts from people who are saying, hey, is it normal that I have screen bleed on the whole top left corner of my screen? I've actually experienced this with pretty much every Steam Deck I've had because I've sent them in for RMA. I had one that I got early before the thing came out. I ended up buying my own when my reservation came up. I had them replaced with RMA like I just said, and all of them have had screen bleed. I just want Valve to figure that out in some way. I know a lot of people are asking for OLED, but I think they have a good enough screen in the thing already, and I don't want an OLED screen to draw more battery life when that's a big problem on the device. But if they could figure out how to make one that draws less battery life, that would be awesome. And sticking with the screen, I'd like to see them dramatically reduce or eliminate the bezels on the screen. I just played Splatoon 3 over the summer on my Nintendo Switch, and yeah, the screen on that thing on the OLED version looks awesome. Even if you took the OLED away, having no bezels makes it feel so much bigger than it actually is. So yeah, I'd like to see them increase the screen size and in that process remove some of the bezel, because the Steam Deck has an extremely large bezel, even comparing it to other systems in the same ballpark. And then finally, having an extra USB-C port would go a long way. You could charge the thing and also use USB-C headphones at the same time. If you have a dock that doesn't have power pass-through or it doesn't have strong enough power pass-through, that would eliminate the problem there. The Next Dock 360, which is that laptop attachment where you can run it with your Steam Deck. You can't charge your Steam Deck while you're using that thing unless you have like a dongle that has the extra port on it. I think they really need to figure out a way to get a second USB-C port. And there's a couple other things they could do, like make it thinner or smaller, but the overall footprint of the device, in my opinion, is fine as is. So if they increase the battery life, they remove the bezels, they add a USB-C port, I will be completely happy with the device. The fourth thing I want to see from Valve this year with the Steam Deck is more official accessories. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know how many different docks I've looked into at this point, thanks to JSOX and iVoler. There are so many different docks that all have their own little killer feature, whether it's LED, like RGB stuff going on, or it's a premium dock that has extra ports that match the official dock, or it's one that has an SSD in it, like that one that I have with the 2TB SSD in the back. There are crazy different docks out there, but the one that I always gravitate to that's sitting right there on my desk below my PC is the official Steam Deck dock. And I use the thing every single day because of the way my desk is set up. I don't have a gaming PC tower. I actually use a Razer Blade 17 with a 3080 Ti in it. I love it so much. And the way I have my desk set up is my monitor, my keyboard, my mouse, my microphone here, my light, like everything is all plugged into the Steam Deck dock. And then that single cable, I have a little extender that's like a foot long that can go into my gaming PC's USB-C port, and it runs the whole desktop setup. And then it's super seamless. I just transfer that cord over to the Steam Deck, plop it onto the dock, and then the whole desktop setup is being run by my Steam Deck. It's absolutely flawless from top to bottom. That's really the biggest use I have for it, because look, I have this great gaming PC, I have a PS5, those are what I'm running games on my TV with. You know, I'm not really plugging my Steam Deck into my TV, but where I have played games on my TV is with indie games, stuff like Dead Cells, stuff like Hades, stuff like Tunic, stuff like Zero Seaver, which I was just talking about. All these smaller games that are easy to run on the Steam Deck, those are games that I have used the dock to play on my TV. And when I go to Michigan, I just throw it in my bag. It's plastic, it's super durable. It honestly feels durable in a way that Nintendo products are. And even though the other docks are metal, I don't want them in my backpack because them being metal makes them heavier, and it also means they can scratch up my computer and my other stuff that's in my backpack. So yeah, the fact that it's plastic might make it feel a little less premium, but the fact that it's plastic makes it more durable and makes it easier to travel around with. So you've got the Steam Deck, you've got the dock. What I really think Valve needs to create this year is, of course, the Steam controller too. We know that it's something they want to do. They've said that they either want to make it in-house or they want to partner with a third party to make it, but it's something they really want to make. Because if you take the original Steam controller, it's not incredible, it's kind of cumbersome, it's kind of weird and hard to get your head around, but once you do, you can kind of see how they got from that to the Steam Deck. And the Steam Deck is a huge improvement over it, with its button placement and the trackpads being better, and it also having two joysticks, and it being a traditional controller that also has the features of the Steam Deck, controller built in. And that's what I think they need to get with the Steam controller too. Just take the Steam Deck, cut the screen out, put it together, and you're good to go. Keep all the back buttons, keep the triggers, keep the touchpads, keep the gyro, just remove the screen. And I hope that's exactly what they're working on at Valve. And just the fact that they've already talked about it in that Verge interview at the end of last year, I think we could see that controller this year. I don't think that's a crazy assumption at all. And just knowing, again, we'll talk about it a little bit more in the video, that Valve has other games in development, having a controller to make it so you can play those games on your TV, on your Steam Deck, that would be absolutely incredible. The next accessory I really want to see from them is a full-on gaming headset. It would be awesome if they were just headphones with a removable mic, kind of like the Razer Black Shark V2. If you've ever seen that headset, you can use those as headphones, and they're pretty inconspicuous, but then if you want them to be a gaming headset, you just plug the mic into the microphone slot. I just want a headset from Valve with the speaker quality of the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck speakers are some of the best, if not the best speakers on a handheld or a phone or an iPad or a laptop or anything thing ever. They're just that good. And from what I've heard about the Valve Index headphones that they made for that VR headset, those speakers are just as good as what we saw on the Steam Deck. So I just want them to take those headphones they've already made, put a headband on it, and then make that a Steam Deck headset, because there's nothing better, like I said earlier, than plugging in a headset to the 3.5mm jack and just closing out the world, sitting on my couch, putting up a jazz coffee shop YouTube stream on my TV, putting on my nice lighting in here, and just getting immersed into the Death Stranding world with headphones on. And I want speakers as good as Valve's. It's going to be hard to beat the Sony XM5s, but I think that's a challenge that Valve is definitely up to. And the sixth thing I'd like to see from Valve this year is a new game or new games. So last year on my birthday, March 3rd, we heard from Valve that they have multiple games in development, and it actually looks like one of those games is pretty damn close to releasing. The game is most likely going to be called Neon Prime. It used to be called Citadel, but it's been revealed by Tyler McVicker that it's basically ready to come out. From what he said, what he's been able to data mine, it's going to be a competitive multiplayer third-person shooter set in the Half-Life universe. It's going to have some light tower defense elements, and the gameplay is going to be built around a train, which all of that sounds absolutely incredible to me. I love the Half-Life universe. I love Half-Life Alyx. I ended up playing Half-Life 2, Episode 1 and Episode 2 right before Alyx came out, and yeah, I understand the hype on that series, and I would love to see this Citadel game come out, just because that sounds like a perfect game for the Steam Deck. They need more multiplayer games that have online connectivity, and I think Valve would be super smart to make sure that any game they ship from now going forward has a preset already baked in for the Steam Deck, so people are able to play on their gaming PC or on their Steam Deck and have it be a totally seamless experience. The interesting thing is there was going to be a VR component to this game for a very long time, and apparently that's been axed just because I guess VR adoption hasn't gotten to where Valve would like it to be. So right now they're focusing on PCs and Steam Deck, and either way, I hope that game drops in the next couple months, because that's where it seems like it's at this point. That's awesome to hear, but why stop there? They said they have multiple games in development. I mean, I would love to see a true follow-up to Left 4 Dead 2 and Left 4 Dead 3. Even if Turtle Rock's not going to make it, I think Valve are the people to do it, because Turtle Rock, I guess a lot of the people who worked on Left 4 Dead aren't even there anymore, and if the best they can produce is Back 4 Blood, I don't really care about what they're making at this point. I want a full Left 4 Dead 3 from Valve. It would be awesome to see Half-Life 3 from Valve, knowing that they got Alyx out and they also have this new Citadel or Neon Prime game that's going to be in the same universe, like build up to Half-Life 3 and finally release it. Unfortunately, all we can do on that front is wait and see, but man, having Valve back making games that will work on the Steam Deck, that sounds like the best Valve ever. So those are 6 things I want to see on the Steam Deck in 2023. I'd love to hear if you agree with me or if you have any more ideas down in the comments below. And remember to subscribe if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Shape on.